A few years ago, I met a family torn apart by their inheritance. There were three kids, equal shares, everything by the book, but equal wasn't fair, at least not in everyone's eyes. The oldest had built a family business with their dad for many years. The youngest really had no interest but loved her family deeply. And the middle one, well, he just wanted everything to be fair. Well, when the will was read and everything was settled, on paper, everything looked great, but in the real legacy and the aftermath, there was nothing but a lot of heartbreak and heartache. That moment, like many others, began to slowly change me because I slowly realized that sometimes in our efforts to transfer assets, we forget to invite. And in our discussion about multi-generational families, we're going to look at this topic today. Money transfers fast, meaning doesn't. And so we'll be talking about that today, episode 37, Inheritance or Invitation. Let's get into it. What does inheritance as an invitation look like in real life? Because they're assigned roles to people of the family. Like, this is your responsibility to learn how to, do X, Y, or Z. And it can always be based on, age appropriateness, right? You can bring the little kids in and give them fun things to do. And yet you might have a 26-year-old. Well, and I think we're just dividing it equally. And that's about the extent of the conversation, where these families, they said, well, no, we invite our families in and we actually meet. Well, welcome to the Legacy Life Podcast, episode 37. Indeed. On this fine Saturday morning in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't subscribed, please do so and hit the notification bell. We'll have a new episode for you every Monday. And we'd love to have you come along on this journey with us as we endeavor to not only educate, but to learn ourselves too about this great, wonderful world of planning and legacy and estates and all those wonderful things that we all love to forget about and not necessarily talk about all the time.
Right. Yep.
So we're going to continue our discussion on generational planning this week. Mm-hmm. Last week, we kind of did an overview of all these families that have done these extraordinary handoffs of businesses and family wealth and meaning and all these things for generations, and some for over 1,000 years, right?
Yeah, which is absolutely insane.
It is.
But yeah, it was more so just an overview, but we're going to kind of get into the minutia of it all.
Yeah. Over the next several episodes, I thought today, we'd talk about, another important aspect of the baton handoff, because I know we like to say in our seminars that we give that whether it's estate planning or if you're talking about the retirement puzzle and putting things together, that we always tell people never look at it as an event. It's always a process. And we're kind of getting into that a little bit today, because typically when there's these handoffs generationally, how do some of these families take it from here to here and it continues to succeed and go to there and to the next, as opposed to these handoffs where there's just a lot of, strange things that happen between families, heartbreak, rifts in relationships, right?
Right. And I would say the big thing that we would highlight or talk about is the fact that it's not just about the wealth itself or being in control of this big asset. It's about the connection,
right?
And connecting those dots and having a purpose within the family. Mm-hmm. And people being able to see the bigger picture.
Yeah, exactly. And so, of course, we're going to bring Dr. Jaffe again into this. He's done some incredible research on these multi-generational families and a clinical psychologist. And so, he really gets into the heart, I think, really well, and the dynamics of these families that have been able to do this. Mm-hmm. He said something here, I think we'll say at the outset: families that last don't just divide things equally, they define things intentionally.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good quote. So I think that's huge.
Right.
Because I think with your generation, it's going to be interesting, because we deal a lot with the baby boomer generation. Mm-hmm. Then looking at your generation, it's like, how do we bridge that gap in connection when there seems to be some disconnect?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, lives are completely different.
Mm-hmm.
This generation than that one, and life moves and changes so quickly now.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to plan the way that they did.
It is. And I think in some ways, at the base, it's interesting that your generation really seems to be looking for that connection, though. They want real things. They
Right.
want real connection, real conversations. It might be a little bit challenging to the status quo of what has been, which I think is healthy to have those discussions. Because, there's that fine balance between what I can glean from an older generation and their experience and their wisdom, because there's definitely treasure there.
100%.
Yeah, right. But at the same time, being able to see where the changes in culture and changes are happening in the psyche and the thought process of like a generation like yours or the one that comes after, and how to help build that bridge and help you navigate that, because innovation, as we talked about last week, was one of the things these families did to continue to be successful.
Right.
They were true to their values, but they continued to innovate and make adjustments
Yep.
to how they ran their households and businesses and so forth.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to. I mean, even if you're just speaking on investment from an investment standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
my generation can't even really, effectively invest in necessarily the same way that that generation did, just because of the changing in the economy and things like that. And so,
Yeah.
I think it's to glean, but also to innovate. It's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah. So let's unpack that mindset shift a little bit. That was a mouthful. Sorry.
Right.
What does inheritance as an invitation look like in real life? Because there's this marriage between here's what we have and that you're gonna be responsible for, right? This next generation. So how do you invite people into that conversation?
Right.
So instead of looking at it as a one-time transfer, like we're saying, money moves from one generation to the next.
Mm-hmm.
So inheritance with these families, they treat it a lot like a transformative event where they don't just ask, well, who gets what? Okay, so Sally gets this percent. And it's not just that. It's who is our family becoming,
Mm-hmm.
so that when the handoff goes, there's actually a purpose why Sally gets this portion,
Right.
or why the family business or trust keeps this portion here and allows the family to do X, Y, or Z.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a thought process behind it. We've taken a look at the landscape, and so we're planning ahead so that there's actually a real purpose. It's not just a percentage because we're related.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so Dr. Jaffe, he calls this the difference between like, okay, so you're my son, so, maybe you're entitled to, because you have 4 siblings, you're entitled to 25% of the estate,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead, he says they don't look at it as like an entitlement. Rather, there's a stewardship that's happening here.
Right.
And so how to translate that is that they would give every family member then, how do you get them in a stewardship mindset? The entitlement mindset will happen by having no conversation,
Sure.
because it's just kind of like maybe quietly assumed
Right.
that, oh yeah, there's an inheritance coming. I'm kidding. I'm sure. I think we're just dividing it equally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about the extent of the conversation, where these families, they said, well, no, we invite our families in and we actually meet
Right.
and we actually talk through, and we say like, Grandma and Grandpa are giving to this charity, for example, and this is why we're doing it. This is why it's really important to us.
Mm-hmm.
And they invite their family in to talk and say, in fact, we have this amount of money available. Where should we give it, everybody?
Right.
And everyone kind of gets to have some input and talk it through. And that's how you kind of learn from each other where everyone's at
Right.
and what's important to the different members of your family, because we're not all the same.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, that was my question. I was going to ask, like, what does inheritance as an invitation look like in real life?
Mm-hmm.
Like practically.
Right. And right. And so the practical part too, on the side, I just gave an example on the giving side, but they also then assign roles to people of the family. Like, this is your responsibility to learn how to, do X, Y, or Z. And it can always be based on, age appropriateness, right? You can bring the little kids in and give them fun things to do. And yet you might have a 26-year-old. Well, that's going to be a different conversation. And so as they move along in their journey, the responsibilities began to change so that this experience was an ongoing one. And you can imagine if you're doing that for years and years with your family, when the baton handoff happens, it's a completely different feeling because everyone's already in the know.
Exactly.
And they know exactly what they're taking up when grandpa's no longer here. It's already been assigned to them. Like, oh, we know, right?
Right. So they don't just need the check or whatever they're getting, but it's like a role and a purpose.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the stewardship doesn't come from a single action. It's an ongoing process. As we said, not an event.
Right. It's not an event. Yeah.
Right.
Process.
So giving responsibility before wealth is really what the arrow you're trying to fire there and trying to make impact in that way is so they understand. Like it's like learning how to do a job. You go there, you're the Padawan learner. For the Star Wars fans out there, shout out to the Star Wars fans. You're just learning how to pick up and use the Force. You're just learning how to. If you're an electrician, you got to go to school. And so it's kind of cool that your families can be used as kind of an educational enterprise in that way.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah,
to hand off those values, and what a better place to do it than in the safety and the confines of a loving family and nurturing environment. That's the best place, I think, for it to happen.
Yeah. So one thing you can start with is a family mission statement, and just from working in the service industry for a long time, and when you go to all the different trainings or whatever, they use examples of all the very successful chains and things like that. One commonality between all of them is that a successful business always has a very clear and concise mission statement.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so kind of seeing the family system as the same thing would probably benefit it, no?
Yeah. That's exactly right, because then everyone shares the same expectations. Everyone's on the same page, and everyone has the same kind of buy-in.
Right.
Yeah, this is who we are. That's really important. I mean, you could. I think you can already tell I can just kind of feel like the difference as we're talking through this just now. Is like, this is really powerful stuff.
Right.
Not easy, because I mean, this is a lot of intentionality. I mean, this is hard work, but rewarding work.
Sure.
So, long-lasting families. Basically, what it sounds like is you could go to. Like if let's see, this 20-member family was in the room, you could probably go around the room and everyone can kind of tell you, this is what we do, this is what we're about.
Right.
Like everyone could say it. Like, I don't know. Okay, families at home, I am not recommending that you watch this movie with young kids, but there was a movie called 300, about the Spartans, military. There's a force of 300 of them. And there's this one scene in the movie where they meet up with another army not a rival army, but from another nation. And Leonidas, the general of the 300, looks at the other army and says, well, who are you? And he says, well, I'm a baker. And who are you? And this guy, they all give their vocations. And then he turns to his own army and says, who are you? And all in unison, all answered with the same answer, that they're Spartans and this is who they are. Like they all had the same identity,
right? Which
made them powerful. That's why that 300 could take on these larger armies and defeat them. And had such success. And I'm not saying warfare, everything, but the whole mentality, the whole point was the camaraderie that they were able to make in a single identity was very powerful in that moment. And that was the whole point. And I think families like this are able to do something very similar where everyone can articulate this is who we are.
So what do you do about new people that come to the family later on, like spouses and things like that?
Yeah, you pretty much write them out of the family. No, I'm just kidding. No, in fact, they make a point in this that with like in-laws and the outlaws, right? Everybody, you get them all in, that you if you can, include them, make them feel a part of, because they are part of the family. They're married in, so you don't have to exclude them or feel suspicious unless there's really good reason to be. Right. But yeah, you don't have to treat them with suspicion or as outsiders. Try to get them as included as possible. And because what we're going to talk about in one of our episodes coming up, a family who did just that. And after, I want to say, I won't give it all away, but 6 or 7 generations later, one of the heads of the family meetings that this family still meets and has their summits is an in-law. And he's one of the lead people helping make the decisions, but he's part of the family. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more fun than arguing over who gets the lake house, right?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of these families, and we'll briefly talk on this because I think we're going to do a whole episode on this too, but they'll use, because people say, well, how in the world do you structure anything like this, like in a legal sense?
Sure.
Right. Yeah. And so a lot of them will use like family LLCs, charitable trusts and funds. They'll use life insurance and different things to have something that's sustainable multiple generations that can just continue to be to go on and on and on.
Yeah. Especially
like a family LLC. LLCs can last forever. Because it's a business. Right. It's its own entity. So, and to your point that in these structures, new adult voices can have a voice, a role, and responsibility as well as the blood relatives. So the family LLC and the charitable fund is kind of like, it's the practice ground as well as like a real entity, but it allows all the family to participate because it's a family LLC. It's for all, and you can name the people in the LLC who belongs. And you can have certain members have the majority of the shares, and then others that have a minor role but still have shares. And those shares can be included in a trust. And there's like all these really cool things that you can do legally to help make this ownership structure and participation structure really robust and meaningful. So, and maybe like a family within those structures, they might allocate, each year 10% of, everything that's in the family trust this year, we're going to allocate toward community projects. And the family meets to discuss what those are going to be, where that money's going to go. And maybe we pick up our rakes and we go actually do the thing while we're, giving to it. Right. And so those processes can really do a lot to build unity, as we know. Right. In our community we have around here, it's how it works. Yeah.
And I would say that I was just about to say that what it sounds like to me is a community, which is very important, especially to people in my generation. Not that it's not to other generations, but growing up in a world where now it's like you can build your own reality in seconds with AI and things like that. Like we're kind of trying to figure out what is reality and what can we trust and things like that. So family and community is going to be really important because it's kind of the groundedness in the craziness of what is this world we live in nowadays.
Yeah. And I think to your point there too, there's like this element I think you're getting at, like, it's so easy within minutes you can create like your own island. Right. And you don't have to be connected if you don't want to be.
I mean, so now, like at this point, a year or two from now, parents are just going to be able to type into whatever program they're using and saying, hey, I want this movie made. I want to show my kids this, and this, and I want this person to win and this person to lose. And all of these different things, they can create an entire movie or an entire TV show for their kids to watch in a click of a button and a few typed words. And they're like building their own realities,
Yeah, right. Which we should do an episode on the power of story to kind of go after that at some point, because you're right, that's that can be really good or really, really bad. I guess, right? I guess we're all gonna be movie makers. Before
I guess
long.
So. Yeah.
So I guess, to kind of wrap up that section, then the family must have, well, I think I'll say this first, is that when it comes to the children involved in this process, because you were just bringing up children and if I want this. Okay. So if we're going to be intentional and have community, have these conversations, then you have to move the children from the entitlement to the stewardship by involving them. And so I think we alluded to this before, that a lot of these families will take the time to the power of ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
When kids transition to different parts of life and are given new responsibilities, they celebrate that within the community and the meetings that these families have.
Yeah.
And so let's see here. If I could swing the pendulum to the other end of the spectrum, when you come to the elders or the people who've been, it's like we have to help the children move along to this, but the elders, we need to make room for the youngers to be able to come in and take that responsibility and not be afraid to let go.
Right.
Yep. To make room for that new leadership and let them take risks and let them learn. So otherwise, I think that dynamic, if that isn't smooth and can't be worked through, then that's what creates the disengagement between the generations, right? This friction between them. So, Dr. Jaffe does this whole thing on that dynamic, which I think is really powerful as well. So wealth without values is what makes it become a burden.
Yep.
But values without wealth still multiply.
Yep.
They still have a far-reaching effect. And I think we should remember that, because if people are watching this and thinking, well, I'm not the ultra wealthy families with family offices and that's not what it's about. Those families do that, yes, but families of all shapes and sizes can do meaningful things like this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Dollar amount does not matter.
It's not all about the money.
It's not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, right, because the family's true inheritance isn't the money, it's the mission behind it. Whether you're giving them $100 or $500 million, it's all the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the research shows that long-lasting families invest in 6 forms of wealth. So when we talk about wealth here, let's be really clear on what we're talking about.
Right.
Okay? Yes, there is financial wealth. So let's just get that off the table, but that's one of 6. Okay? There is spiritual wealth. There's the human capacity and connection of wealth, relationship, family, societal, impact on society, structural wealth. The structure of, if you set up things properly, that's wealth.
Right.
Anything you create, becomes wealth in its own sense. If you create something that's of value to other people, you've created wealth.
Yeah.
Whether it's monetary or not.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So I guess in closing here, our conclusion then on this, as I look at this, is that I kind of summed it up in a couple things, that protecting money, that's the simple part. That really is simple.
Yep.
But passing the meaning on behind it, that's where the real work is.
Yep.
And that's where the real effort is.
Yep.
And
so everyone's different. They all have their own mindsets and perspectives. And so making kind of like an example of the body of Christ, like we're all to be of one mind and in unity.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to do, right? Because it takes sacrifice, it takes submission and humility. And that is not easy. But if you can do it, great things happen because you're in unity.
Exactly. And it's for lack of a better term, I think it's attractive. I think it's a good word too. Those who maybe have not seen it, when they do, you just feel the weightiness of the specialness and the value of what that kind of atmosphere does in general. And I think, some people may watch this and say, I don't know if we would even have a chance of doing this because of how our family dynamic is right now, or, there may be families that have a lot of friction. We get that, and it doesn't mean it's impossible, and it doesn't mean you can't start today to try to move back in another direction. It might take more work, but doesn't mean you can't. At least give it your best, and and ask God for help to do that. Because to not do it, it doesn't mean that every family is going to do this. it's just there's opportunity to do it if people are willing to take up the baton and have a go
Right.
at it. And there's a lot of families out there who have done really good being disciplined at saving and putting money away and doing all the right things in that sense. And I applaud them for that. We meet a lot of families. You're like, man, you guys have just done a really good job, saving. And because that's not easy to do.
No.
And so, but with that is just to maybe just take some time to think about, so what's the mission behind that? Why did we do that?
Right.
And see what you can do to provide some meaning and value to the next generation and maybe even the one after that.
Yep.
So
next week we're going to talk about one of those steps that you could take towards doing what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Which is the family board meeting.
Yep. For lack of a better title.
Lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But
it's the best I could come up with.
Right. Yeah. But it still works. It's,
Yeah.
It's one of those efforts into, unifying and taking those steps to create meaning.
Right. So if you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like. And if you haven't subscribed, like we said at the beginning, please do that. Leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts on this. We'd love to hear your feedback or other topics you want us to talk about. If you'd like to have a conversation with us, in our show notes, there's always a link to our calendar so you can get on and have a free 30-minute consultation with us. Talk about anything you want pertaining to life, your estate planning, or your multi-generational planning. All right. So until next time, we'll talk to you soon.